A barefoot boy walks up to a billionaire and says, "The unthinkable, sir. I can make your daughter walk again." In that moment, the world stopped. What followed wasn't science. It was something deeper, something no one expected from, someone no one believed in. This is the story that left millions speechless. "Sir, I can make your daughter walk again." The words seemed to freeze time. Thomas Whitmore, a billionaire businessman known for building empires with logic and science, looked up from tying his daughter's shoelace on her wheelchair. He was dressed in a dark navy suit, the kind that cost more than most people made in a month, his polished shoes shining in the afternoon sun. Around him, the city moved as usual, cars rushing past, heels clicking on sidewalks and the endless hum of New York chatter, but Thomas heard none of it. Only the voice, small, unshaken, unbelievable. He turned to see where it had come from. There stood a young boy barefoot, dressed in an oversized brown coat with sleeves too long, his tiny hands buried in its torn pockets. His face was marked with dust, his hair untamed, and his eyes too sharp for someone his age. The boy couldn't have been more than 9. "Did you say you can make my daughter walk?" Thomas asked, unsure whether to laugh, shout, or ignore. "Yes, sir," the boy replied calmly. "I can help her." Lily, Thomas's 10-year-old daughter, looked up quietly, her flame red. Hair brushed her cheeks, and her hands clutched a worn-out, weather-beaten notebook she used for sketching. She hadn't spoken much that day. Or most days, really. Paralyzed from the waist down since a tragic accident 3 years ago, Lily had seen the inside of more hospitals than playgrounds. Thomas had flown her to specialists across continents, top surgeons, neuroscientists, experimental therapists. But the answer was always the same. Her spine is damaged. She never walk again. And now, a barefoot boy in tattered clothes said he could fix what the world's finest minds could not. "Is this some kind of stunt?" Thomas asked, standing up, voice rising slightly. "Who sent you?" "No one," the boy said simply. "I saw her, and I know I can help." People nearby began to notice. A street violinist paused mid-song. A vendor stopped handing out pretzels. Passers-by slowed, their eyes moving between the billionaire, the wheelchair, and the strange little boy making such an impossible claim. Thomas looked around, uncomfortable under the weight of attention. "Listen, kid, I don't have time for games." "I'm not playing, sir," the boy interrupted, his voice still, respectful but steady. "Just give me 10 minutes. If I'm wrong, I'll walk away." Lily looked up at her father and whispered, "Let him try." That did it. Thomas paused. His entire life was built on logic, but for some reason deep in his gut he felt something different. Was it desperation, hope, or just curiosity? He exhaled. "Fine," he said, glancing around. "We'll go somewhere quiet, but just 10 minutes." The boy smiled for the first time. Not wide, just enough to say, "You won't regret it." And with that, the 3 of them walked toward the edge of the park. No one watching could guess that they were walking into a miracle. The boy's name was Jayden, but no one on the streets called him that. To most people, he was just that kid under the bridge or the one who draws with chalk. But Jayden carried a world inside him that no one ever saw in a history. That could silence even the richest man alive. He had lived alone for the past 3 years, ever since his mother Nia passed away from pneumonia. She was a healer in every sense of the word. Not a licensed doctor, but someone the community quietly turned to when the hospitals gave up. People with chronic pain, paralysis, tremors. She worked with them all. Not with pills or scans, but with her hands, pressure points, and something else, something deeper. Jayden used to sit beside her while she worked. He'd watch how she placed her fingers along a spine, gently massaged nerves, and whispered to patients like their bodies were listening. And sometimes, miraculously, they did. One man came in using crutches, left walking. Another, who hadn't moved his left arm in 5 years, cried when she helped it twitch. Jayden wasn't just watching, he was learning, mimicking her movements. With sticks and dolls, remembering where she touched, how long and why. But when she died, everything changed. Jayden was just 6, There was no extended family, no home to go back to. He became just another forgotten shadow of the city surviving. By sketching portraits on the sidewalks, running errands for vendors, and sleeping under a cardboard roof by Franklin Bridge, people stopped noticing the boy with strange hand movements. They saw only his dirt, not his discipline. They assumed he was broken when he had been built by brilliance. And yet, Jayden never stopped practicing. He used tree bark, chalk, his own arms and legs. Every technique his mother taught him, he preserved like treasure. Not because he wanted to be famous, but because he remembered the faces of the people she helped, and he believed one day someone would need him too. That day came when he saw Lily. She was sitting in a wheelchair, sketching quietly with sad eyes. Her feet rested flat, but unmoving. He didn't know her name, her father's wealth, or the cameras occasionally following them. All Jayden saw was the same frozen energy he'd seen before the disconnect between body and belief. That's when he stepped forward and said the words that shook the world around them. "Sir, I can make your daughter walk again." Jayden didn't carry a degree. He didn't wear a lab coat. But what he carried was legacy, a legacy born on back streets, shaped by a mother's hands and forged through hunger, heart, and hope. As Thomas wheeled Lily toward a quiet spot in the park, Jayden's mind was already mapping her nervous system. He wasn't guessing. He knew what to do. This wasn't an act of magic. It was the moment fate had prepared him for. They found a quiet corner beneath the sycamore trees at the edge of the city park, just far enough from the noise, yet close enough that a small crowd of curious strangers slowly began to gather, drawn by the unspoken sense that something extraordinary was about to happen. Thomas helped Lily settle into her chair. Her eyes met Jayden's, filled with a quiet mix of fear and hope. Jayden, barefoot and steady, kneeled beside her without a word. He placed his small hand gently on hers and said, "Do you trust me?" Lily nodded. Her father watched from behind, arms crossed tightly, every muscle in his body tense. Years of disappointment had turned him into a man who never let himself believe in things he couldn't measure. And yet here he was putting his faith in a barefoot boy with dirt under his nails and wisdom in his eyes. Jayden closed his own eyes for a moment, remembering the rhythm of his mother's hands, the way she moved not just with touch, but with intention. He reached behind Lily, gently placing his fingers along her spine, then her knees, then the solace of her feet. His motions were slow, purposeful, and strangely calming. He began speaking softly, not to Thomas, not to the crowd, but to Lily. "Your legs are asleep, but not gone. They're still yours. You just forgot how to call them." Lily looked confused, but she nodded. She was listening fully. Jayden pressed his thumb into a pressure point just below her knee, then another, along her ankle. Lily winced, just a little. Her foot flinched. Thomas gasped. "Was that—" Jayden didn't break focus. He moved to her other leg, repeating the same sequence: tap, hold, release, breathe. Then the impossible happened. Her toes curled. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but it was real. Then one leg twitched, then the other. Then, slowly like a forgotten machine, awakening, her knees bent ever so slightly. A small boy nearby shouted, "She's moving!" And the crowd around then leaned in. Lily looked down at her own legs and whispered, "Daddy, I feel them." Thomas fell to his knees, overwhelmed. "Sweetheart, you can feel them?" "I can feel the ground," she said, voice trembling. "I can push," and then she did. Lily placed both hands on the arms of her wheelchair and, with a shaky breath, stood just 2 inches off the seat. It wasn't a full step, not yet. But it was something she hadn't done in over 3 years. The crowd burst into applause. Some cried, some recorded on their phones. And Jayden? He simply stood up, wiped his hands on his coat, and smiled quietly. Lily stared at him, still breathless. "How did you do that?" Jayden shrugged. "You just needed someone to believe your legs still remembered how." Thomas stood in stunned silence, staring at the boy who had done what science said was impossible. But the miracle wasn't over. It had only just begun. The moment went viral before Thomas could even process what had just happened. A stranger in the crowd had filmed it all from Jayden's first touch to Lily's first movement. Within hours, the video was flooding social media feeds, news broadcasts, and hospital conference rooms. Headlines read, "Homeless boy heals billionaire's paralyzed daughter? A boy with magic hands or medical mystery? Is this the child healer America needs to believe in?" But none of the headlines captured what Thomas now understood. It wasn't magic, it wasn't luck. It was legacy passed from a mother who died unknown to a boy who refused to forget what she taught him. Back at the family's private estate that evening, Thomas sat across from Jayden at a long marble table, his suit jacket off, his tone humble. "Who are you really?" Thomas asked, breaking the silence. Jayden looked down at his chipped nails and shrugged. "I'm just someone who remembers what my mom taught me." Thomas nodded slowly. "You realize what you've done? You moved the one person I love most when the world's best doctors couldn't." "I didn't do it for praise," Jayden replied. "I just wanted her to feel like she could again." There was something in the boy's voice so grounded, so pure that it shattered every preconceived judgment Thomas had ever made. In that moment, the billionaire didn't see a beggar anymore. He saw a miracle in motion. That night, Thomas made a decision. He didn't just offer Jayden a warm meal or clean clothes. He offered him something much more powerful. A home, an education, a future. But Jayden paused. "I don't need all that unless it helps me help others like Lily." That one sentence would change everything. Within weeks, Thomas used his wealth and connections to launch a new initiative with Jayden, the Lily Project, a foundation dedicated to helping children with movement disabilities through both medical and alternative therapeutic techniques, bridging science with compassion, clinics with community. Jayden became its youngest ever honorary director at just 10 years old. He wasn't in charge of funding or PR or politics. He was in charge of hope. Every week, Jayden volunteered at children's centers teaching basic pressure techniques, speaking to families, and training therapists in what he had learned by instinct, experience, and love. And Lily, she walked, at first just a few feet at a time, then across the room, then into school for the first time on her own 2 feet, waving proudly to her classmates. All because a boy society ignored, stopped and said, "Let me try." Jayden never wanted to be a hero, but sometimes the world needs one, even if he comes in bare feet and broken clothes. 1 year later, the world looked very different. The same sidewalk where a barefoot boy once approached a billionaire had become a small memorial, garden flowers, benches, and a bronze plaque that read, "Sometimes hope comes in the humblest form." The Lily Project. Jayden stood quietly by that plaque, dressed neatly now in clothes his size, holding the same notebook he always carried. He still wrote in it every day, not about math or money, but people, healing, ideas. A soft laugh echoed behind him. He turned to see Lily this time, walking across the path with her backpack on and a smile that stretched ear to ear. "Bet I can beat you to the tree," she shouted playfully. Jayden raised an eyebrow. "No fair, I wasn't ready." They ran 2 kids, once worlds apart, now bound by something bigger than luck or science. They were the proof that change didn't need titles or degrees, it needed belief. Back at the Whitmore estate, Thomas stood with a group of reporters and donors at a Lily Project event. He spoke clearly, but with a softness that only a father could possess. "I spent my life building companies, chasing numbers, and trusting logic," he said. "But the greatest breakthrough I ever witnessed came from a boy the world dismissed as worthless. And that boy gave my daughter something no amount of money ever could, freedom." He looked toward Jayden in the distance. "He didn't just heal Lily, he healed me, my pride, my blindness." The applause that followed wasn't polite, it was real. That night, Thomas sat Jayden down and asked him, "What do you want your future to be?" Jayden didn't hesitate. "I want kids like me to know they're not invisible. I want to teach, not just healing, but how to see people, how to believe before the evidence shows up." And with that, a new branch of the Lily Project was born, Jayden's Way. A youth-led academy where children from underserved communities could come learn alternative therapies, emotional resilience, and most of all, self-worth. By the age of 11, Jayden was already speaking at medical schools. Not to teach anatomy, but to teach awareness, humanity, possibility. But ask him what mattered most? He'd still say, helping Lily take that first step. Because some stories don't need fame to matter. Some miracles don't need bright lights or lab coats. Sometimes the greatest lessons come from the quietest voices. As the sun set behind the park that evening, Jayden and Lily sat side by side on the bench where they once began. No wheelchairs, no fear, just two friends, one who had forgotten how to walk and one the world forgot to notice, until he changed everything. If this story touched your heart, don't scroll away. Hit that like button, subscribe for more powerful true life stories, and share this with someone who needs hope today. Because sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest miracles. If this story moved you, type respect in the comments and make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more real, powerful stories the world nay. A barefoot asterisk.